Hey guys, how is everybody doing? And continuing my movie review series of the Resident Evil movie adaptations, here are my thoughts on the sequel, Resident Evil Apocalypse. Starting off with my positives on Resident Evil Apocalypse is I really like how this movie is more open world and we have more areas to explore, more of Raccoon City to see because in the first movie it was in just like one contained area where we were just in a laboratory or the hive as they called it, and that was basically the whole setting of the movie and a small bit in the mansion which didn't really do much, so it was more in the laboratory. So it was nice for the sequel to be more open world and more, um, and just like have the characters explore more to where you're not contained into one area to where it kind of gets boring after a while. And this movie does a really good job of making you feel like you are in Raccoon City, like in the games where there's zombies everywhere, people are getting killed left and right. There's zombies everywhere that you look. There's dogs walking everywhere, and there's people just trying their best to survive. This movie does a really good job of making you feel like you are in Raccoon City, like as they should. And I just really liked how it was just more open world, so our characters can explore more and just like go into different areas and different settings throughout the whole movie. I really enjoyed that throughout the movie, especially since after like I already said, you're just contained to one area, and now you're in a whole and now you're just in a whole new setting and a whole bunch of new ones, and which is very similar to the games. Where like in the first one, you're basically contained into this mansion, and that's basically the whole setting of the game. You don't really go anywhere else, and then you go into the sequels like with 2 and 3, to where you're exploring the whole city of Raccoon City, going through sewers, going through laboratories, going through the city streets, going to an orphanage or whatever. It's very similar to the games, so where after being in one area in the first one, and now you're in a whole bunch of different areas in the second one. And one of my issues with the first movie is that they didn't really have any Resident Evil characters. The only character that was somewhat interesting was Alice, who is now the main character throughout this whole franchise, and they didn't have a single Resident Evil character unless you want to include monsters like zombies, lickers, dogs, or whatever. But this movie thankfully brings in new Resident Evil characters. Well, not new Resident Evil characters, but uh familiar faces, I guess I could say. You have Jill Valentine, you have Carlos, you have Nikolai, and you have all these characters that are mostly from Resident Evil 3, because this movie is basically adapting the story of Resident Evil 3. So because when you have characters like Carlos, Jill, and Nikolai, I will admit some of the characters I felt like weren't adapted too well. I didn't feel like they brought the characters to the movie overly well from the games, but it is cool to see the characters in it, at least, where it's like, oh, you're watching Resident Evil if Jill Valentine is in it, which I will say her actress, she does an okay job as Jill. A lot of people don't seem to like her, and I guess I'm in the minority saying that she does a pretty decent job. And she definitely looks like her because it's literally the same outfit that she wears in the original Resident Evil 3. And Carlos, I think that how they use him is okay. I don't really love the actor that they chose for him, but when it comes to video game adaptations, I guess no one's perfect. But yeah, I really thought it was cool to see that Carlos was going to have a big role in this, because in the games he only shows up in 3, and other than that he never shows up again. So it was cool to see Carlos, and I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, he's kind of like a main character in the next one, and I'm pretty sure maybe even the fourth one, but I could be mistaken. And I was really confused with Nikolai, because in the games Nikolai is this villain. He basically works for Umbrella or whatever, and he basically turns his back on everybody and is the you know like everybody for themselves type of person. But in this movie they make him likable and funny, which I don't know how to feel about that, because Nikolai is supposed to be this asshole from the games, but in this movie he's actually likable and funny. Like when he dies, he go like when he dies, it's kind of comedic because he goes, shit. Like, you come.
This bitch. Oh shit.
Come on, you can't have me like Nikolai. Like, he's supposed to be an asshole. He's supposed to be a guy I don't like, but in this movie, he's likable. And Ginger. I don't know how that corresponds with anything, but hey, he's in it at least. But yeah, I really thought it was cool to see them finally bring in actual Resident Evil characters and not just slap the title on there just to make some money, to where they actually put the characters into this movie. And of course, the character that is probably the most important one that they included into this movie is Nemesis. I've gone on record and continuously said that Nemesis to me is the face of Resident Evil villains. I talked about that in my Resident Evil 3 review. Go watch that if you have not. And to me, Nemesis has always been the face of Resident Evil when it comes to the villains, and I was really glad to see that they brought him into this movie. And I'm really, really happy that they kept him practical. I would have been a little upset if they made him CGI, but thankfully they made him practical. And I really love how they made you kind of feel his presence. It's not like this excuse me, it's not like this big giant monster like he's presented in this game in the games. He's just like a normal sized human, just with a lot of big guns and a lot of strength, for a living being, I guess I could say. And I really liked what they did with Nemesis here. I don't know how to feel about the whole twist that it was the guy from the first one. I forget his name, but he was like the cop or whatever, and he gets scratched by the liquor, and Umbrella shows up, and they're like running tests on him. And if you pay attention at the end of the first movie, they say, "I want him in the Nemesis program," which they try to do this cool, twist that he's actually Nemesis. Which, if you, like I said, if you pay attention at the end of the first movie, you already know that that twist is coming. So it's not really overly surprising. Or else you're like a lot of people, you don't pay attention, maybe that twist surprised you. I don't know. But I don't know how to feel about that because it's weird because Nemesis was just like this created creature or monster to take out STARS members, like this Terminator like being. He was never uh he was never like a like a rebooted human, I guess you could call him. He was never that. So I don't know how to feel about that. And especially the ending with him, which is absolutely stupid, where this human antagonist. I don't even know his name. He's some guy that works for Umbrella, and he just wants, for some weird reason, gets a weird kink out of seeing Alice and Nemesis fight, which I guess is cool for us audience as well. Like, cool, we get to see the face of the movie franchise go against one of the coolest villains in Resident Evil. They're gonna fight to the death, and you also find out it's her friend from the last movie, which is a cool little twist that they show here, I guess. And he gets this like weird kink out of watching them fight or whatever, and I don't get that. And then she defeats him by stabbing him with a pipe, which is not Nemesis. He would not easily get destroyed by that because he is, like I said, he is a Terminator like being. He's going to come after you and kill you no matter what you throw at him. He's the Terminator of killing STARS members. No matter what you throw at him, no matter how much you shoot him, try to kill him, he is going to push on and keep trying to kill you until you are dead. That is who Nemesis is. But he gets stabbed by a metal pipe, and he's defeated.
That's dumb. You're dumb.
And then he turns his back on Umbrella because they want him dead or whatever, which, again, not Nemesis. That doesn't make any sense, and I think that's absolutely stupid, but whatever. But overall, I do like that they included Nemesis in here. There, besides this stupid ass ending that what they decide to do with him, I really like how they utilize him, and I really like how they use him, and they give him like this cool Terminator vision when we first get introduced to him, and he does sound like Nemesis because he's going around saying stars and all that. So it's cool to see Nemesis here. I really like what they do with him. Besides that, just stupid ending that they decide to do with him. And another issue that I had in the first movie and that has been upgraded here is that the violence in this movie is a lot better, and there's a lot more blood, there's a lot more gore, there's a lot more practical effects. And I think that was a big upgrade from the first movie because the little gore horror in me was a little upset that it wasn't in that, especially for how violent the video games here is. Now, it's not overly violent, like you're not seeing heads explode, you're not seeing people get their heads ripped off or arms ripped off, nothing like that, but it's violent enough to where you're like, oh, that's better than the first one, you know? So the little gore hound in me was a little happy with that. And now moving on to my mixed aspects, and one of my first mixed aspects of this movie is the side characters, the like other antagonists to like Alice or the villain antagonist, whatever. The other side characters in this movie, a lot of them are okay, and some of them are enjoyable, but then some of them are just plain bad or just kind of there just to die. Like there's this one Stars member that's friends with Jill. I don't remember his name. I guess he's a cool inclusion to have like someone alongside Jill to where she's friends with him or whatever. And then you have this like reporter, which she doesn't really need to be there besides, I guess, record the events of what's going on. Like that's important. Like she reminded me of the character from fucking Outlast. Yeah, the camera is the most important thing in this movie. Yeah, that's what you should be worried about. Like that just pissed me off off going throughout the whole movie. And then you got the human antagonist, which created Nemesis, I guess. And like I talked about earlier, he gets like this weird kink out of watching Alice and Nemesis fight, which is absolutely stupid to me. He was just stupid. I don't know what they were doing there. And then you got the Ashfords, who I'll talk about later, which I'll go into more detail there, but yeah, the other side characters, besides like Jill and all of them that are, I guess, antagonists to Alice because she's the main character in this franchise, um, I didn't really, I didn't really care for them, and they were just okay. And my other mixed aspect, which it's an upgrade from the last one, is the CGI. The CGI in this movie is a lot better from the last one. It's not mind-blowingly better or anything like that, but the liquors in this movie that are shown in the church scene in this movie, they look a lot better, and they look, and they actually look, watchable to see, I guess. But because in the last one they just look bad, but in this one they look better. They don't look overly better by any means, but they do look better. There are moments to where they do look a little but there are moments where you're like, okay, it's an improvement. And now moving on to my negatives about this movie, and one of the first ones that was just really distracting the whole time I was watching this movie, and it was like a thing that just constantly happened throughout the whole movie, and I think that has to do with a different director because this is the first uh Resident Evil movie that was not directed by Paul W. Sanderson. And this whole franchise, this is the only one that he has not directed besides Welcome to Raccoon City, I guess, because I'm not really including that in the Anderson franchise. But this is the one that he did not direct, and it was uh, given to a different director. I don't remember his name. And you can tell because there's a lot of weird, fast, quick cuts with the camera. Like, there's moments to where the action sequences are, like, really fast and they cut really quick to where it just leaves you nauseous at the end of the day. Like there's like a moment in the church where like the liquors are roaming around, like you can hear them, and then there's like doing fast cuts of close-ups to the people's face, and then cutting back to the wall and going back and forth, fucking everywhere, to where it just left me nauseous, and I was like, okay, I don't even know what I'm seeing anymore because you are cutting way too fast. And then there's other moments where like they're walking around, this weird slow motion, laggy like effect is going on to where it's just overly distracting, and I'm just sitting there wondering like what the hell is going on, like why are you lagging around? And I think that has to do with the different director, but it's very noticeable and it's very distracting, and it kind of took away my enjoyment of the movie because I get this movie is like an action movie, like this whole franchise is more action than horror, but it just left me distracted and just left me nauseous while watching it. And my other negative, and this has to do with me after recently playing Resident Evil Code Veronica, is the inclusion of the Ashfords. Now, I think it's cool, again, like I talked about, to have Resident Evil characters come into this, but the Ashfords are a pretty important character in this franchise because in Code Veronica, they're these like twins in the franchise, but created by their dad or whatever. I won't really spoil it here if you have not played Code Veronica. It is a game I do recommend you playing. I hope we do get that remake that they supposedly have in store for us. But the inclusion of the Ashfords is just not correct from Code Veronica because you have the dad that's in a wheelchair that created the T virus for his daughter, which again with the daughter that's not accurate to the games either. So without spoiling Code Veronica, I don't like how they included them. I don't like how they uh use them. Like it's cool to see them, I guess, to see more Resident Evil characters. I just don't like how they use them. Overall, guys, I do think that this is a better adaptation of a Resident Evil game. I do think that if I were to grade this movie as a Resident Evil movie, I would definitely grade it a lot better than the first one. However, there are still some things that hold my enjoyment from it. I do enjoy this movie. This was one of my favorites growing up, but I still prefer the first one. I do think that this is definitely improvement when it comes to a Resident Evil adaptation, but as a movie, it is okay. I do enjoy it, and if you like the first movie, I do think you'll enjoy this movie a lot more. Or if you didn't really care for the first movie, then I think that you'll like this one better. So, what do you guys think about Resident Evil Apocalypse? Have you seen it? What do you think about it? Do you like this movie? Do you not like this movie? Do you prefer this over the first one, or do you prefer the first one? Let me know in the comments below, and we shall talk about it. And if you like this video, like it. If you love to subscribe, hit the bell notification so you will get notified for all of my latest videos and for the rest of my Resident Evil review series. And of course, until my next video, I'll see you all next time.